My name's Michael Reed. I'm 33, live in a quiet town just outside Boston, and co-run a biotech startup that focuses on preventive healthcare solutions. It's not the kind of job that fits neatly into casual small talk. I've learned that most people hear startup and imagine ping-pong tables and caffeine-fueled chaos, not months of grant writing and 18-hour days trying to keep funding from collapsing. My family never really cared to understand that part of me. To them, I've always been the background character, the younger son who stayed quiet, dressed simple, and disappeared behind spreadsheets and late-night meetings. My older brother Daniel, he's the golden boy, always has been. Taller, louder, effortlessly charming. He could show up with a mediocre report card and they'd still frame it on the wall. Meanwhile, the first once landed a patent licensing deal, and they called it neat. It's not jealousy, it's just math. You grow up watching everyone else get praise for showing up while you get ignored for showing effort. And you start calculating where you really stand. For years, I told myself that if I just kept building more success, more proof, more sacrifice, they'd eventually see me, maybe even be proud. But when I got the call about Mom's birthday this year, all of that cracked open. I had just finished closing a major funding round. My team and I were preparing to hire 3 new leads, including 1 transfer from New Jersey. So I figured I'd take a rare break, 3 days off, head home early, help set up for Mom's birthday like I always did. Nothing dramatic, just showing up like I always had. When I called, my mom didn't answer. It was Elena, my mother, who picked up. The conversation started cold and got colder fast. I was thinking of coming back a few days early, I told her. Need anything picked up? There was a pause. Then, Michael, maybe it's better you don't come this year. At first, I thought she was worried about my work schedule. I said, it's fine, I already cleared everything. Her voice shifted, more clipped, formal. Daniel's girlfriend will be there. Leah. She's CFO of a major company. We're trying to keep things comfortable. You showing up might, well, it could make things awkward. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. You're not exactly easy to explain, Michael. The company, the science stuff. You get it, right? I didn't get it, but I got it. They didn't want me at the table. Not because I'd done something wrong, but because I didn't make them look good enough. Because someone else's title was easier to brag about over cake and candles. I see, I said quietly. If you insist on coming, she added, don't call me your mother that day. And that was that. I hung up, sat there in the stillness of my apartment, staring at the espresso I hadn't touched. Not angry, not sad, just done. The following hour, I logged into my banking app. For over 2 years, I'd been covering my parents' utility bills, electricity, water, internet, even cable. Almost $6,000 a month. Not once did they ask if I was okay financially. Not once did they say thanks. It was always, Daniel's between jobs. Can you help? Or Leah's starting a new role. Things are tight. Click. Auto payments canceled. No drama. No announcements. Just silence. The same kind they always gave me. The next morning, I didn't touch my phone. I didn't send a message. Didn't check in. I just brewed some black coffee, sat by the window, and let the weight of the last 24 hours sink in. Mom's birthday came and went, and for the first time, I didn't show up, not out of spite, but because pretending didn't feel like peace anymore. At 5:03 p.m., right as the late afternoon light was starting to dip behind the rooftops, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Elena. Michael, the power's out. Can you check what's going on? It's Mom's birthday. It's important. No, how are you? No mention of the call, just logistics. As if I were still there, on-call technician. A minute later, no water either. Internet's down. Call the providers. This is urgent. Then one from Daniel. Guests are arriving. Leah's trying to keep Mom calm. What's happening? I picked up my phone, typed a response, paused, and deleted it. Not because I didn't have something to say, but because I already knew they wouldn't hear it. They never did. So I did nothing. I placed the phone face down on the table, leaned back in my chair, and let the evening stretch out in silence. There was no joy in it, no gloating, just an eerie sort of clarity. For 2 years, I had been paying their bills like it was a duty stamped on my birth certificate. And now that the power had gone out both literally and metaphorically, they finally remembered me. But not as a son, just as a solution. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The next day, while reviewing a list of staff relocations, one name stopped me cold. Leah Prescott, head of finance New Jersey branch. Approved for transfer to Boston HQ. Approver, Michael Reed, co-founder. I couldn't help but let out a breath of disbelief. The same Leah who had apparently made such an impression on my family that I wasn't presentable enough to be in the same room with her, was about to report directly to me. I remembered meeting her briefly once at a biotech finance conference 6 months ago, maybe. She shook my hand, called me Mr. Reed, but I don't think she had any clue who I was beyond a name tag. We'd been in the same room but on opposite orbits. And now? Now the orbit had shifted. I didn't need to deny her transfer. I didn't need revenge. Life had set the board, and all I had to do was let the next move play out. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman my family had essentially replaced me with was about to walk into my office and hand me quarterly financials with my name on the approval line, and none of them knew. Yet, Leah arrived on a Thursday. I was sitting at my desk, buried in contract reviews, when I heard the soft knock. The door opened halfway, and there she stood, black blazer, tablet in one hand, nervous smile stitched into her face. For half a second there was nothing, just air. Then her eyes met mine and widened. She didn't speak at first, just froze. You could almost hear the gears grinding behind her perfectly composed expression, trying to align the memory of Michael, Daniel's brother, with Michael, head of strategy and co-founder of Novacell Biogen. "Michael?" she asked, voice uncertain, like she already knew but didn't want to believe it. I gave her a professional nod. "Miss Prescott, welcome aboard." She stepped in slowly, clutching the folder like it might save her. Her voice faltered. "I didn't realize. You worked here." "Oh," I said, keeping my tone even. "That makes sense. No one ever asked." She placed the folder on my desk, her hands now visibly trembling. Inside were cone forecasts, internal audit summaries, and her new onboarding documentation standard for anyone taking over regional finance operations. I skimmed the first page, then looked up at her again. "You'll be reporting directly to me. We do cross-functional reviews every Friday. I expect transparency, accuracy, and zero excuses. Understood?" She swallowed. "Yes, sir. Sir." That one hit differently. I nodded toward the door. "You're dismissed." She left without another word. And when the door clicked shut, I sat back and finally let myself breathe. Not because I wanted this, not because it felt good, but because the silence that followed was no longer mine alone to carry. I didn't hear from Daniel that day, not that I expected to, but by Friday night my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. First, a message from my mother. "Michael, why didn't you say anything? Why embarrass her like that? You knew who she was." I didn't reply. Then came Daniel. "Seriously? You let her walk in there blind? You couldn't give us a heads up?" Us. As if I still belonged in that us. And finally a voicemail from Leah. Her voice shook on every word. "I didn't mean to be part of any of this. I had no idea. I didn't know what your family said to you. About you. But I do now. I'm sorry, Michael. Truly." I sat in my kitchen with the lights off, just the faint glow of the city outside my window. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel victorious. All I felt was stillness. This wasn't revenge. This was gravity. The quiet force pulling everything into its rightful place. 2 days later it happened. The call I never expected to take. It was my Uncle Robert, the only one who still sent me holiday cards even when I stopped replying. I answered, mostly out of curiosity. Michael, he said, sounding tired. They're a mess right now. Your mother's spiraling. Daniel's blaming everyone. And your father. He paused. Well, let's just say he hasn't taken it well. Not sure what they expected, I replied flatly. I know, Uncle Robert said. But listen, yesterday, during the birthday dinner, right after the blackout, Leah told him everything. Told the whole table who you were. That you were her direct boss. That you owned part of the company. That you signed off on her transfer. I think it broke something in them. I didn't say anything, he continued. Your mother kept asking, why didn't he tell us? And your father, he just sat there, didn't say a word. I thought about the silence I'd carried for years, all the unspoken sentences, all the dinners I left early, all the birthdays where I paid for the meal but didn't get a thank you. I didn't need to tell them, I said at last. They wouldn't have listened. Uncle Robert was quiet for a while. I think they're listening now. Monday came. Leah avoided eye contact at the morning huddle. She gave her updates with precision, but the tremble in her voice hadn't fully disappeared. After the meeting, she stayed behind. Can we talk? She asked. I gestured toward a chair. She sat. I ended things with Daniel, she said, eyes locked on the desk instead of my face. Not because of what happened at work, but because of what happened that day, what I heard, what I saw in them. She paused, then continued. They made you feel like a stain, like some inconvenience, but you carried all of them. And they never even looked at the weight. I looked at her then, really looked. This wasn't someone begging for forgiveness. This was someone stunned into awareness. Sometimes that's enough. I don't bring personal matters into the workplace, I said, but I appreciate your honesty. Let's keep things professional from here on out. She nodded. Of course, and thank you for not saying anything. That day, you could have embarrassed me in front of everyone, but you didn't. I gave a half shrug. Didn't need to. Truth has a way of walking into the room on its own. She smiled faintly. Yeah, I noticed. That night, I walked home in the soft drizzle. The air smelled like spring finally getting ready to take root. As I passed the bakery on the corner, I remembered how, years ago, I'd stopped there on the way to Mom's her favorite raspberry scones. But not this year. This year, I didn't bake anything. I didn't show up with balloons. I didn't pretend everything was fine. I let the lights go dark. I let the silence speak. And now they finally heard it. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't made a scene, but I had stood my ground, and that was enough. It was a Sunday afternoon when they showed up. No warning, no call, just a buzz at the gate, the kind of buzz that made your stomach sink before your mind even caught up. I wasn't expecting anyone. I'd purposely left the day free, no emails, no meetings, no Slack pings, just peace. But when I checked the peephole, there they were, Elena and Thomas Reed, my mother and father, standing shoulder to shoulder in the soft spring light, holding nothing but a small reusable shopping bag and something that looked like an envelope poking out. I stared through the glass for a long minute. My hand hovered over the lock. Eventually, the first opened the door without a word. Hi, honey, Elena said, voice hoarse like she hadn't slept. Can we come in for a minute? I nodded once and stepped aside. No hugs, no smiles, no emotion, just the scrape of their shoes against my entryway tile. I poured water, set 2 glasses on the table, sat across from them without asking why they were here. I didn't need to. Thomas cleared his throat first. Look, about your mother's birthday. We know some things were said that shouldn't have been. I said nothing. He glanced at her, as if hoping she'd pick it up from there. She didn't. So he continued, slower now. Daniel's having a hard time after the breakup. Your mom's been upset. We thought it was time we talked. My expression didn't change. Then Elena placed the bag on the table and pulled out a sheet of paper, printed, tidy, folded 3 times. We've been thinking, she said, sliding it forward. You're stable now. Your company's doing well. We're hoping you could help us out, just a small monthly contribution. $2,000 a month. For bills, insurance, some savings for retirement. I looked down at the paper. It even had line items. $450. Utilities $300. Health premiums $500. Property tax reserve $750. Miscellaneous support total $2,000 flat. I looked up at them, straight-backed, calm. What about Daniel? I asked. He's struggling, she said quickly. Leah leaving really set him back. His work's been rocky. We can't pressure him right now. Of course, Daniel couldn't be pressured, but I could. I leaned back, fingers lightly tapping the table. Let me offer you a counter-proposal. They both looked surprised. If Daniel agrees to contribute $1,000 a month, I'll match it. On one condition: when the time comes, all remaining assets, including the house, come to me. Written and signed. A pause. Silence. Then red blooming across my father's face like a rising tide. Are you seriously giving us conditions? He barked. After all we've done? We raised you for 20 years and now you want a contract? I didn't blink. You didn't raise an investor. You raised a son. But if you're coming to me like a lender, I'll treat it like a loan. His jaw clenched. My mother fidgeted with her bracelet, eyes darting between us. It's not that simple, she murmured. We just thought you'd want to help. Like before. I nodded slowly. Before I gave, quietly. Every month. Nearly $16,000 over 2 years. Not once did you say thank you. Not once did you ask if I was okay. The moment you thought someone more impressive showed up, you shut the door in my face. Thomas stood suddenly, chair scraping. This is unbelievable. All we asked for was some support. And all I asked for, I said, voice steady, was not to be erased. He didn't respond. Just stared at me, lips tight, chest heaving. Elena stood too, more gently. Maybe we should go. I stood as well, walked them to the door. No hugs, no promises, just the sound of the lock clicking behind them. I stood there for a while, hand on the knob, waiting for the guilt to creep in. The old reflex, the urge to fix it. But nothing came, only silence. Familiar, yes, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was mine. They didn't call again. Not the next day, not the next week. No messages, no follow-up, no negotiation. They wanted support without accountability, nostalgia without responsibility. But they left with something else entirely. The realization that I had finally stepped off the hook, that their conditions no longer held me. And if that meant being the selfish one, I was fine with it. Because I was no longer living in the version of myself they had constructed: the fixer, the wallet, the one who showed up and cleaned up and paid up without being seen. I was done being the background. I had redrawn the frame. The next morning I brewed a strong cup of coffee, watched the sun rise from the same window I used to sit at after 14-hour days. This time I wasn't weary. I wasn't weighed down by invisible contracts. I was just steady, quiet, free. And that, more than anything, was the beginning of my peace. Months passed. Not rapidly, not dramatically. Just the slow unfolding of life: coffee runs, late nights at the office, team meetings layered with budget approvals and investor decks. The usual. But the silence, that was new. It wasn't just quiet from my parents. It was a stillness in my own chest, where old obligations used to echo. For the first time, I didn't feel tethered to guilt. I wasn't scanning every calendar for family birthdays or measuring my worth in favors fulfilled. I was free. Leah never brought up Daniel again. She kept her word. Professional, precise, respectful. A month into her new role, she stopped by my office with a quarterly projection report. She lingered a moment longer than necessary before sliding the folder across my desk. I wanted to say, she began, I'm grateful you never let this get personal. I glanced up, eyebrow raised slightly. You mean when you found out I was your boyfriend's invisible brother? Or when my mother threw me out of her birthday dinner to keep you comfortable? She winced. I meant, you handled it with more grace than anyone deserved. I leaned back. That's because I stopped needing anything from them. Or from you. She nodded slowly. I didn't see it then. But I see it now. I didn't say anything more. And that, I think, was the answer she respected most. A few weeks later, I was at a conference in D.C., speaking on a panel about ethical biotech funding. Afterward, a young founder approached me, asking how to balance personal baggage and leadership. You don't, I said honestly. You just learn which baggage to put down and which to carry with a purpose. That night, in the hotel room, I stared at the city lights, thinking about how far I'd come, not in title or salary or accolades, but in boundary, in becoming someone who no longer mistook being needed for being loved. Then one day, out of nowhere, Daniel texted me, "Hey, heard about your panel. Congrats." I stared at it. 3 short lines. No punctuation, no apology. Just a digital breadcrumb from someone who once watched me get cut out of a birthday because my job was hard to explain. I didn't respond. Not out of malice, but because I didn't owe clarity to someone who never cared for the truth in the first place. Aunt Robert reached out next. Your dad's not talking. Your mom's quieter than I've ever seen her. Just thought you should know. I thanked him. And that was that. No long explanations. No emotional rewinds. Because some stories don't need to be read to be understood. They just need to be closed. That spring, I stopped by a local art gallery one Sunday. There was a piece near the back, an abstract landscape, painted in muted grays and soft golds. The title, Home is a Choice. The first stood there for a long while, and I realized it was. All my life, I thought home was a place I had to earn, something I'd be invited into if I became small enough, quiet enough, useful enough. But standing there, in my own shoes, in a life I had built without applause or permission, I understood. Home wasn't their house. It was the version of myself I finally protected. Later that week, Leah turned in her 2 weeks' notice. She'd accepted a position in San Diego. We shook hands the morning she left. At the door, she paused. I hope, whatever happens next, you keep doing it your way. I will, I said. You should, too. She smiled, almost sadly. I wasn't ready for who you really were. But now I see that's on me. And then she was gone. Months turned into a year. I didn't call on Christmas. No one called me. No messages on my birthday. No angry voicemails. Just silence, heavy and clean. But in that stillness, I didn't feel erased. I felt held by my own boundaries, my own choices, my own refusal to carry a weight that was never mine to begin with. I learned to love mornings again. The kind where I brewed coffee without needing it to numb something. The kind where sunlight through the blinds felt like a blessing instead of a spotlight. I even stopped checking their social media, stopped wondering if they'd change, stopped replaying old memories like puzzles I needed to solve. One evening, while reviewing year-end projections with my team, someone laughed and said, "You know what I love about working here? We don't do performative chaos, just real, solid ground." And I thought, that's the goal, not the revenge, not the moment they realized who I was, but the life that came after. The life where I never had to prove it again. If someone were to ask me now, do you regret not helping them? I'd say this. I regret that it took me so long to realize I was allowed to stop, that I didn't have to keep paying for a seat at a table where I was never offered a plate. And if someone told me I was too cold, I'd say, maybe. Or maybe I was finally warm enough to walk away. Story 2. You know those moments where reality slaps you mid-sip of coffee? Yeah, that was me. I was standing in my kitchen, half-dressed and halfway through a cup of hazelnut brew, when my mom's voice came through the phone, sharp and concerned. "Mel, have you been ordering a ton of food with your debit card?" My stomach turned. "No? Why?" There are 6 charges: burgers, sushi, pizza, all through DoorFast or whatever it's called. Over $300. $300? My heart started doing jumping jacks in my chest. I rarely even used my debit card. My meal plan at school was enough. And if I ever wanted something extra, it was a one-off thing, maybe a latte, not a feast. I told her I'd check, then hung up and opened my banking app. And there it was. 6 charges, spaced over 2 weeks. I didn't recognize a single one. At first, I thought maybe my card had been skimmed. But I wasn't careless with it. I rarely carried it around. Only one person had ever had access to it: Ryan. Ryan was my boyfriend. Charming, magnetic, and occasionally intense in the kind of way people politely call passionate. We'd been dating for about a year, and while he had his temperamental moments, I never thought he'd steal from me. Still, the timing and location of the charges made it hard to ignore. Most were placed late at night, delivered to a building 2 blocks from his dorm. I told myself I was being paranoid, that it had to be a coincidence, but the unease in my gut wasn't budging. So I walked the 15 minutes to Ryan's dorm. He opened the door with that usual smirk, wearing sweats and a look that said, "What now? Hey, random question, have you used my debit card?" His face changed instantly. The smirk evaporated. "Are you serious? You think I'd steal from you? I just saw a bunch of delivery charges. I never ordered any of it. And you're the only one who's had access. Wow, Melanie. That's how little you trust me? Maybe some scammer got your info. You should cancel it before they wipe your account." He was angry. Too angry. Defensive in that way people get when they're not just insulted, they're cornered. I played it cool. "Yeah, good idea. I'll call the bank." I left his dorm and canceled the card that night, but my gut still screamed that something wasn't right. So I contacted the delivery service, told them I had unauthorized charges, asked for receipts. 3 hours later, they emailed me. Every receipt was linked to one name: Ryan C. The attempts to scribble out his name on the receipt scans were laughably bad. It was still fully visible. My stomach twisted again. He had looked me in the eyes, lied, and then ate the damn food I unknowingly paid for, hours before I asked him. I wanted to scream. The next morning, I went straight to his door again. This time, I was shaking but not afraid. "I have the receipts," I told him flatly. He blinked. "Receipts for what?" "For the food you ordered, with my card. Your name is on them." He didn't even deny it. His whole demeanor twisted like he dropped the mask completely. "You went snooping? Seriously?" he hissed. "You stole from me." And then lied. "We're done, Ryan." He laughed. A bitter, joyless sound. "You think you can just walk away from me? You're nothing without me. Watch me." I turned and walked away. I should have felt powerful. Instead, I felt watched, uneasy, like I'd poked a bear that wasn't quite done with me. That night, I barely slept. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree around 1 a.m. Ryan, 1:14 a.m. "You really making a scene over takeout? Pathetic." 1:37 a.m. "Should have known you'd turn psycho." 2:05 a.m. "You have no proof." 2:30 a.m. "You better not tell anyone." 4:12 a.m. "You're gonna regret this." I stared at the screen, numb. This wasn't just some breakup tantrum. This was a threat. By noon the next day, whispers started. Friends gave me side eyes. People the first didn't even know well avoided eye contact. My roommate, Ash, finally came clean. "Mel, look at this." She showed me Ryan's story. It was a fake text thread me, supposedly begging him to take me back. Captioned, "Crazy ex won't leave me alone." I laughed. The kind of laugh that means you're about to punch drywall. "He's telling people I stole from him," Ash added quietly. That stung. I felt like I was losing everything: my money, my relationship, my reputation. And Ryan, he was winning. He controlled the narrative. Until I decided he wouldn't anymore. A friend of his, Jordan, texted me that night. "Jordan, he's saying you embarrassed him, that you owe him. He's mad, Mel, be careful. I locked my door that night. At 3:47 a.m., I woke up to a sound I'll never forget. My doorknob turning. Soft knock. Mel. Open up. Ryan. I froze. My fingers shook as I texted Ash, who was at her boyfriend's place. Me. Ryan's outside my door. He won't leave. Ash, call security. Right now. I did. Campus security said officers were on their way. I stayed still, barely breathing. 2 minutes later, I heard them arrive. One of them knocked. Miss, it's safe now. You can open the door. Ryan was gone. I reported it. Campus security gave him a formal warning and banned him from my building. I thought that was it. But then my bank account pinged. Suspicious login attempt. I opened my app. My savings gone. From over $3,000 to $14.82. He drained my account. It wasn't just a breakup anymore. It was war. One didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared at my phone, stunned into silence. My savings were gone. Every cent I had scraped together through part-time tutoring, babysitting over breaks, birthday cash I'd saved instead of spending like everyone else, poof. My balance read $14.82. I thought maybe it was a glitch. Maybe the app was buggy. But no, the transaction history was all there. Neat little transfers to a payment app I didn't use. Each one carefully spaced out so I wouldn't notice until it was too late. I knew exactly who it was. I didn't even need to guess. Ryan, the same guy who looked me in the eye and told me I was crazy for asking about a few food orders. The same guy who'd faked texts, spread rumors, and tried to paint himself as the victim. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was furious. So I made a plan. First, I called the bank. The rep was nice, calm, probably trained for moments just like this. I explained everything: unauthorized transfers, the timeline, the fact that my ex had access to my banking details. She pulled up the account records and confirmed something important. The transfers had been made through a digital payment app linked directly to my bank, which meant there was a trail. And if there's one thing Ryan wasn't, it was careful. She couldn't give me the recipient name, but she flagged the transactions for fraud investigation. I needed more, so I called his bank. It took some strategic charm, polite concern, a little theatrical anxiety, some exaggerated "I'm so scared he's going to ruin my life" energy, but eventually, I got what I needed. Confirmation that the money had landed in an account under his full name. That was all I needed. The trap was set. I marched straight to campus security and laid everything out. The messages, the door incident, the fake texts, the bank proof. They took it seriously this time. Like, full notepad serious. By the end of that meeting, Ryan wasn't just banned from my dorm. He was banned from all campus housing. They told me if he stepped within 50 feet of me, they'd notify the police. Good, but not enough. Because Ryan wasn't just some petty thief. He had something he actually cared about: his grades. He was in one of the top honors programs on campus. Full scholarship, academic probation if you so much as missed a deadline. I filed an official misconduct report. I attached the bank documentation, the fraud alert notice, screenshots of every message and fake text thread. I made sure to include the time he tried to break into my room. Everything. I didn't just want Ryan out of my life. I wanted consequences. 2 days later, it happened. I was walking to class, headphones in, trying to stay under the radar, when I heard yelling. Not like casual yelling. This was meltdown yelling. What do you mean I am on probation? I turned the corner, and there he was, Ryan, standing outside the academic affairs office, hands flying everywhere, face turning redder by the second. She's lying. She's obsessed with me. This is all fake. A staff member stood calmly in the doorway, not even blinking. Mr. Collins, we have evidence. Your case is being reviewed by the university's ethics committee. I kept walking, quietly, calmly. Inside, though, I was practically doing cartwheels, but I wasn't done. Ryan's parents were the ones funding his education. Daddy's money, mommy's pride and joy. So I wrote them an email. Not dramatic, not mean, just professional. Dear Mr. and Miss S. Collins, I'm writing to inform you that your son has been involved in fraudulent activity involving my bank account. I have filed an official report with both our campus and local law enforcement. I wanted you to be aware, as this could impact his academic and financial standing. Attached are the relevant documents. Then I hit send. No emojis, no hope you're well, just facts. 2 days later, my roommate Ash ran into the room like she'd just won the lottery. Mel, check this out. She flipped her laptop around. Ryan's student profile? Suspended. Apparently, his parents pulled his tuition the moment they found out. Not out of guilt, out of shame. The university froze his scholarship while the investigation ran. And just like that, the Golden Boy's future went up in smoke. Word got around fast. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't need to. People whispered in the dining hall. Someone posted an anonymous thread on the campus forum. Honors student suspended over fraud case. And for once, it wasn't me getting side eyes. People started reaching out. Emily, hey, I'm sorry I didn't believe you earlier. I didn't know. Jordan, so. Yeah, his parents are pissed. He's losing his apartment, blaming you for everything. Be careful. That one stuck with me. Because I knew Ryan. I knew how he thought. And if there was one thing he couldn't handle, it was losing control. The threats started again. Blocked number. Late night calls. Unknown, you ruined my life. Unknown, you'll pay for this. Unknown, I know where you live. That last one chilled me. I went straight to the police this time. Campus security had already flagged his name, so when I showed them the screenshots, they took it seriously. Miss Rivera, we can help you file a restraining order. Done. Signed. Filed. Now, if Ryan even looked in my direction, he wasn't just breaking school rules, he'd be breaking the law. For 2 days, nothing. Silence. Then one night I got a call from Jordan again. Mel, you need to check the campus forum. I opened it, and there it was. A full-blown rant from Ryan, like essay length, paragraphs of accusations, blaming me for everything. He called me a liar, a manipulator, a psycho who couldn't handle rejection. And then the line that sealed it, I know where she lives. I screenshotted it, sent it to the police. By morning, the post was gone. So was his student email. Expelled. He was officially done. That should have been the end. But Ryan had one last call in him. Blocked number again. Against my better judgment, I picked up. You think you won, he said. His voice was low, shaky. You took everything from me. I took a breath. Steady. No, Ryan. You did that to yourself. Then I hung up, and I never heard from him again. For the first time in weeks, I didn't wake up to check my phone in fear. No calls, no drama. Campus got quiet. People stopped whispering. Ryan's fake stories faded. It was like he never existed. Ash and I sat in our usual cafe spot the next weekend. She looked up from her phone. He deleted all his socials. Instagram, Snap, everything. I sighed. Finally. So, what now? She asked. And for the first time I had an answer. Now, I move on. Because this whole thing, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about getting my life back. Life after Ryan felt still. Not peaceful exactly, but still. Like the air after a storm, you're not sure if it's over, but you're too tired to care. No texts, no fake stories. No one watching me from the end of the hallway pretending not to. I got up every morning, grabbed coffee, walked to class, and let myself exhale. One day at a time. That's how I rebuilt things. The whispers stopped. The stares faded. Even the ones who believed his lies were slowly figuring out the truth on their own. I didn't need to explain. I just needed to exist and let the dust settle. I didn't expect to hear his name again. But of course, Ryan didn't know how to disappear. It was a Friday afternoon when Jordan, the same friend of Ryan's who had low-key warned me before, sent me a text. Jordan, you're not gonna believe this. I was halfway through cleaning my apartment, earbuds in, music blasting. I paused and texted back, me, what now? Jordan, he tried enrolling at another university. Me, okay? Jordan, they rejected him. Found out about his expulsion. I stared at the screen. Wait, seriously? Turns out, getting kicked out for financial fraud isn't something universities ignore, especially when it's linked to an active police report and a restraining order. Ryan had burned his bridges, lit a match, dropped it, and kept walking like the flames couldn't touch him, but they did. Hard. I didn't feel sorry for him, not even a little. He made every choice along the way, lied, stole, threatened, harassed, and he thought there'd be no consequences. But karma doesn't forget, and she's got a long memory. A year passed. I finished my semester, landed an internship at a nonprofit I loved, and started making actual plans, my own place, my own money, my own damn life. Ash and I grabbed lunch one day at this tiny cafe off campus. Same place we used to hang when everything with Ryan was falling apart. It felt different now. Lighter. She looked up from her phone. You ever wonder what happened to him? I shrugged. Not really. And I meant it. He wasn't a part of my world anymore. He was a lesson, not a presence. A reminder of what happens when you let someone make withdrawals from your life without permission. But I will say this, the scars don't vanish. Even now, sometimes I double-check my bank accounts before I go to bed. I still lock my door twice. There are nights when I hear footsteps in the hall, and my breath catches without me thinking. Healing isn't linear, but it's happening. I've started saving again, slowly, smartly. I took a crash course in personal finance, opened a high-yield savings account, and got a second job for a while, not because I had to, but because I needed to prove to myself I could stand on my own again. And I could. A few months after graduation, I got one last text from a number I didn't recognize. Unknown, you still think you won? I stared at it, didn't reply, didn't flinch. I just blocked the number. Again, because that wasn't my problem anymore. That was his. The truth is, I didn't win by ruining Ryan's life. I won because I didn't let him ruin mine. I didn't let fear stop me. I didn't let the lies become reality. I didn't let him take more than he already had. I rebuilt what he broke without shortcuts, without revenge fantasies, without becoming someone I wouldn't recognize. I didn't need to destroy him. He did that all by himself. 1 year later, I stood in my new apartment, keys in hand, furniture still arriving piece by piece. Sunlight poured in through the windows. There was music playing in the background, laundry going in the corner. Nothing dramatic, just peace. It was quiet, and this time, I liked it. Ash stopped by with coffee and flopped onto my couch, looking around. Damn, you really made it. I smiled. Told you I would. We clinked paper cups like champagne. I don't think about Ryan much anymore, but sometimes, late at night, when I close my banking app and see a balance that's mine, fully, completely mine, I remember that girl who stood outside his dorm shaking, terrified of a boy who thought he owned her. I remember her, and I'm proud of her, because she didn't break. She got smart. She got loud when she had to. She got justice. And then, she got free. Story 3. I don't even know where to begin, but I'll try. 3 years ago, my sister accused me of stealing her engagement ring, and my family didn't just believe her, they threw me out of the house. Turns out the ring had been in the garbage disposal the entire time, but by the time anyone realized the truth, the damage had already been done. My name's Caleb. I'm 25 now, and I live in a small town in northern Indiana. I grew up in a modest, 2-story house with my parents, David and Maureen, and my older sister, Avery. She's 28 now, was 25 when everything went down. We weren't rich, but we had everything we needed. Dad taught science at the high school, and Mom worked at the hospital as an ER nurse. They were the kind of people who packed lunch every day and reused wrapping paper to save a few bucks. Avery and I were close when we were little. Backyard adventures, made-up games, climbing the old pine tree behind our house, we were inseparable. She was always the bossy one, but I didn't mind. That was just Avery. Things changed in high school. She was the golden child valedictorian, debate champ, internship with the mayor's office. Meanwhile, I was the average kid just trying to make it through chemistry without failing. She went off to some big university out east while I stuck around, enrolled at the community college, took odd jobs to figure out what I wanted to do. We drifted, like siblings do sometimes, but I never thought we hated each other. Then came the engagement. Avery got engaged to her boyfriend Nathan, corporate law guy, came from a family that probably drinks wine with lunch. The ring was some generational family heirloom, massive, sparkly, and flaunted in every direction. Avery acted like she'd won the lottery. And to be fair, my parents treated her like she had. They threw a massive engagement party, basically turned our house into a Pinterest board. Fancy people from the city showed up, talking about art and finance while I stood by the cooler with my old high school buddies, nursing a warm beer and wondering how we'd all grown so far apart. And then, everything imploded. It was maybe a month after that party. I had a day off work and was chilling in my room playing games when Avery and Mom got back from wedding shopping. I heard them laughing in the kitchen, didn't think anything of it. About an hour later, I heard Avery scream. I ran downstairs, expecting a bug or a broken dish. Instead, she was standing by the sink, red-faced, yelling that her engagement ring was gone. She'd taken it off while doing dishes, left it on the counter, and now it was nowhere to be found. And guess who was the only other person home? She pointed right at me, claimed I must have taken it, said I was jealous, bitter, that maybe I wanted to pawn it for some cash to finally do something with my life. I laughed at first. I thought it was a joke, but Avery wasn't laughing. And when Mom and Dad got home and she laid out her dramatic version of events, something in their eyes shifted. They searched my room, tore through every drawer, upended every box. Of course they didn't find the ring, but they did find a few $100 I'd stashed away from my job at the hardware store. That's it, Avery said, practically triumphant. He sold it. I tried to explain I was saving for a class at the community college, maybe a laptop if I could stretch it, but nobody listened. The next few days were a blur of accusations and guilt tripping. Mom crying, Dad not even looking at me, Avery pressing me to confess, saying she wouldn't press charges if I just came clean. After a week of this circus, my parents gave me 2 days to pack and leave. Just like that. 22 years old, broke, blindsided, and homeless over something I didn't do. I moved in with my buddy Marcus for a while. He'd just gotten back from the Navy and had a tiny place across town. His couch became my bed. I took random gigs, dog walking, stocking shelves, helping a buddy demo an old shed, anything to make a few bucks and not feel like a burden. Eventually, I landed a job at a warehouse. Grueling hours, freezing in the winter, but it paid the bills. I moved into a shared house with 3 other guys from work. Not glamorous, but it was mine. That first year, it was rough. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, replaying the whole thing, wondering how my sister, who used to share her Halloween candy with me, could think I'd actually steal from her. Wondering how my parents could just kick me out without even trying to hear me out. I stopped taking their calls. They left voicemails, especially Mom, begging me to talk, saying things could be fixed. Dad would send cold, matter-of-fact texts like, "Let's talk about what happened," as if it was a misunderstanding, not a character assassination. Avery showed up once at my job. I ducked out before she saw me. Couldn't deal with it. I built a new life, made friends at work, took online business classes, even got promoted to shift supervisor. It wasn't the life I expected, but it was finally mine. I started taking pride in things again. bought my own bed, paid my bills on time, started planning for the future. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about them, especially around the holidays. Watching people post about family dinners, seeing parents with their kids at the grocery store, it hit hard. I missed what we used to be. But I didn't miss the people they became. Then, out of nowhere, an email from Dad, "We need to talk." At first I deleted it, but curiosity got the better of me. I called him, and what he told me, the ring, they found it. Apparently, Avery knocked it into the garbage disposal while doing dishes. It had been sitting there the whole time. She only found it when the disposal jammed and a plumber fished it out. 3 years later, 3 years, they apologized, said they felt awful, that they wanted to make things right. And I didn't know how to respond. Part of me felt vindicated. Another part felt like screaming, because while they were playing happy family with Avery's new husband and planning brunches, I was crashing on couches and praying I wouldn't be fired for dozing off at work. They want me to come back, to visit, to forgive. But how do you forgive people who didn't even ask for your side of the story? That's the question I'm still trying to answer. I didn't say yes right away. After that call with my dad, I just sat there, staring at my cracked phone screen. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel rage. I just felt hollow, like someone had told me a storm was over, but forgot to mention they'd already bulldozed the whole town. They wanted to meet up to talk face to face. Not at the house, thank God. I told them if we were doing this, it'd be in public, neutral ground. So we picked a quiet coffee shop 2 towns over. No chance of running into anyone we knew. That was important to me. I showed up early. Old habit. Picked a booth in the back. I needed to sit with my back to the wall. Just something about being able to see the exits made me feel better. I hadn't seen my parents or Avery in over 3 years. I didn't know what would happen, what they'd say, if they'd pretend it was no big deal, or worse, try to rewrite history. They walked in 10 minutes late. My mom looked like she'd aged 20 years, not 3. She used to have this put together, nurse on the go energy. That day, she looked like she hadn't slept in a week. My dad still stiff, still serious but quieter. Not the same man who told me I was tearing this family apart while standing in my bedroom like a cop on a raid. And Avery, she couldn't even look at me. That part? That hit harder than I expected. We sat. Awkward silence for a full minute. Then they all started talking at once, apologies, explanations, regrets. I just sat there, watching their mouths move. Eventually, I held up a hand, one at a time. My mom went first. Through tears, she said she'd failed me, that she'd let fear and pride take the wheel, that the day they kicked me out, she cried herself to sleep, but didn't have the guts to stop it. My dad followed, said he'd run through that week in his head 100 times, how he should have asked more questions, trusted me, believed me. He said what hurt most was realizing that for all his talk about fairness and logic, he'd chosen blind loyalty to the child who made him proud, not the one who needed him most. And Avery, God, she didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just whispered, "I was wrong," like the words tasted like ash. Said she'd been so caught up in her own world that she couldn't imagine being wrong about something. That when the ring went missing, blaming me was the simplest explanation, and once our parents backed her up, she didn't have the courage to backtrack. I wanted to believe her, I really did, but there was still that cold knot in my gut. That part of me that remembered the look on her face when I was packing my bag. The part that had lived off gas station sandwiches while she honeymooned in Italy. I didn't forgive them. Not that day. I told them I appreciated the apology, but I wasn't ready to go back. I wasn't ready for Sunday dinners or family group chats or birthday cards signed "Love you always," because for 3 years they hadn't loved me. Not when it counted, not when it mattered. My mom reached for my hand. I flinched. She pulled back like she'd touched a stove. "I get it," she said quietly. "I just hope someday you won't flinch anymore." We said our goodbyes in the parking lot. No hugs, just distance and cold wind and the sound of cars going by. I got into my old beater car and drove back to my apartment, my life, the one I'd built when they left me behind. And that night I did something I never thought I'd do. I called a therapist. First session was rough. I barely spoke. Just sat there, letting the silence speak for me. But by the third week, I started opening up about the betrayal, about feeling like the family dog everyone loved until it bit someone, and then suddenly just a liability, something to be gotten rid of. Therapy helped. Not in some overnight magical way, but in small, human ways. I learned to name what I was feeling instead of just burying it. I learned that grief isn't just for death, it's for the people who are still alive but don't show up for you when you need them the most. Meanwhile, life kept going. I kept working. Got another raise at the warehouse. My manager offered me a shot at handling team scheduling, and I took it. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt good to be trusted. I started saving again. Only this time, not for classes I'd never take, for a place of my own. No roommates, just mine. The calls started coming in again after a few weeks. First my mom, once a week. Then my dad, checking in every other Sunday. Nothing deep weather, how work was going, what show they were binge watching. I kept it light. No talk of the incident, no talk of Avery. Avery texted a few times. I didn't respond at first. Just stared at her messages like they were museum exhibits. I'm so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say it. I miss you. Eventually, I texted back. I need time. That was it. She said she understood. She didn't push. I kept doing the work. Therapy, journaling, hanging out with the guys from the warehouse. Marcus became my rock again. We'd grab beers after work and talk about dumb stuff. Fantasy football, broken forklifts, dreams of starting a small business one day. I started seeing the world differently. I stopped romanticizing the past. The childhood memories, the laughter, the treehouse games, they were real. But so were the cracks. The way Avery's accomplishments got praised, like Olympic gold, while my wins were treated like participation trophies. The way my parents pushed her toward the stars while quietly preparing me to stay grounded forever. 3 years gave me clarity I never would have had otherwise. So when I got a call one day from Avery, saying she wanted to meet just the two of us, I didn't say no. I said, not yet. And I meant it. Because this time, I wasn't the boy begging to be believed. I was the man deciding who got to stay in my life and who had to earn their way back. It's been nearly a year since that first meeting in the coffee shop. Feels like both yesterday and a lifetime ago. I've kept my distance, but not in anger, just in quiet clarity. There's a difference. The calls from my parents kept coming, but they stayed respectful. No pressure, no guilt trips. Just small check-ins, like they were relearning how to be in my life without controlling it. Sometimes Mom would tell me about her garden, like we hadn't missed 3 years of birthdays and holidays. Sometimes Dad would send me articles about warehouse tech or leadership tips, like we were trying to build something on top of the wreckage. I didn't open all of them, but I opened some. Avery. She waited. For months she didn't call, didn't text. Then one day she sent me a picture. It was us, barefoot, dirt-streaked kids, standing under that old pine tree in the backyard. She didn't say anything with it, just sent the photo. I stared at it for a long time. We looked so sure of each other back then. I didn't reply right away. When I finally did, I said, I remember that day. We thought the tree was magic. She wrote back, I think we were right, and maybe we were. We finally met, just the two of us, on a Sunday afternoon in early spring. Neutral ground again this time, a park we used to walk through as kids. She looked smaller, not physically, just emotionally, like the weight of the last few years had worn her down. But she didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just said, I don't expect anything from you. I just want to be honest. So she was. She talked about how she'd spent those 3 years convincing herself I must have done it. Not because the evidence was strong, but because the alternative being that wrong, that cruel was too much to admit. She told me about the guilt, about the nights she'd stare at the ceiling wondering if I was safe, if I was even still in town. Then she asked a question that caught me off guard. Did you ever hate me? I didn't lie. I told her there were nights I did, not in the way you hate a villain in a movie, but in the way you hate the silence after betrayal, the way you hate the version of yourself that begged to be heard. But I also told her something else, something I hadn't realized until the words came out. I don't hate you now. She looked away when I said it, wiped her eyes without making a sound. We didn't hug. We didn't suddenly become siblings again, but we talked about what happened, about what it meant, about what came next. That conversation didn't fix everything, but it gave us a beginning. A true one not based on pretending nothing happened, but on facing exactly what did. Back home, I kept working, saved enough to get my own apartment. A real one. One bedroom, small kitchen, but mine. No roommates, no shared fridge drama, no whispered phone calls in the hallway. For the first time in my life, I felt steady. I also got promoted again, shift lead, turned into warehouse ops coordinator. Bigger title, more stress, but I welcomed it. I liked knowing where things were going. I liked being part of the plan. And therapy? I stuck with it. My therapist told me healing wasn't linear, that some weeks I'd feel free and other weeks I'd find myself back in the memory loop. She was right. But the loops started getting weaker. The nights shorter, the flashbacks quieter. Sometimes people ask if I ever forgave my family. Here's what I say. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's a long road, and you walk it alone at first. Then maybe, if the people who hurt you are willing to walk too, you meet somewhere in the middle, but you don't wait for them. You walk anyway. I forgave my parents in pieces, not because they earned it, but because I didn't want to carry the weight anymore. I forgave Avery when I saw her show up without needing anything in return. But full trust? That takes longer, and maybe that's okay. I visit sometimes now. Not often, not for holidays, but enough. Dad doesn't call me son like he used to, but his eyes soften when I walk through the door. Mom bakes too much and cries too easily. Avery makes space instead of noise. We're not what we were, but we're not strangers either. Last month, I got an offer for a new job in another state. Bigger company, bigger pay. A fresh start with my name on the lease and my own desk. It felt right. I told my family during one of those slow Sunday dinners. They nodded, supported me, didn't beg me to stay, didn't guilt me, just asked if they could visit sometime. I said maybe, and meant it. As I packed up my apartment, I found that old photo Avery sent the one of us as kids under the tree. I took it out of the drawer, stuck it on the fridge. Not because I wanted to go back, but because I wanted to remember where I came from. Because even though they broke me once, I built myself back. And no one can take that from me. I don't know what the future looks like. Maybe we'll grow closer. Maybe we'll drift again. But either way, I'm at peace. I didn't get justice in a courtroom. I didn't get a dramatic apology on a stage. What I got was better. I got my life back. And that's enough.